Sometimes you tend to walk away from these calls a different person. Sometimes filled with anger, sometimes filled with guilt, and sometimes not even knowing who you are anymore. My first 6 years as a paramedic were exhilarating. As a rookie, I wanted the exciting calls. I wanted to go to the stabbings and the shootings and the car wrecks and the multiple patients and the cardiac arrests. Routine transfers and emergency calls all played a very important part in my life, and I learned to develop a thick skin, so I thought. It was January 27th, 1988. It started off like any other day, routine calls and routine transfers, but it ended like no other. I remember every detail as though it happened yesterday. My partner and I were dispatched to the scene, but had no idea what we were walking into. When we knocked on the door, we were met by a young police officer who was extremely shaken up. And his only words to me were, "She's in the bedroom." It took me 12 years to realize that I couldn't have saved her, but the guilt remains. Once a beautiful, thriving young career woman, Tema Contra was suddenly gone. And there was nothing I could do about it. But I was supposed to be a hero. I was trained to save lives. And what I did know was that I was about to embark on a journey that many of us travel, but we refuse to talk about. I went home that day and cried uncontrollably. I was scared. Tema was the victim of a random act of violence, and I feared that my wife would be that next victim. As my fear turned into paranoia, my marriage began to crumble. But my wife knew I needed help. Somehow the wives always know. And it was her ultimatum that saved our relationship and ultimately saved me. When you work in emergency services, the public perceives you to be a certain way. Their expectation is that we're always in control, that we're never afraid, and that we're miracle workers. When they call 911, they expect us to be their saviors. But sometimes we fail, and sometimes we hurt, and sometimes we cry. But God forbid we ask for help. How dare we admit that we may be the ones with the problem? It's easier to pretend that the problem doesn't exist than to confront the demons living inside of us. But I want you to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We have the ability to change this reality, the reality of PTSD in emergency services. We need to begin a discussion amongst ourselves. We need to make asking for help okay. Asking for help is not a weakness, and asking for help should be the norm. I founded the Tema Contra Memorial Trust to keep Tema's memory alive, but also to give those men and women in uniform the help that they need and the permission to ask for it when they need it. Education won't help prevent PTSD, but if we can recognize the signs and symptoms of these psychological stressors, the more likely we are to see them as being normal, and the more likely we are to seek assistance if it happens to us. We need to get rid of the stigma that asking for help is a negative thing. We owe it to our families and we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we stay healthy, both physically and mentally. I'm no longer working as a paramedic, but I still remember how it felt to wear that uniform. For me, my uniform was a coat of armor. When I had it on, I felt invincible. I felt that I was able to handle anything the world threw at me. But when that uniform came off, I realized that it was just me. I wasn't a hero, I was just human. And so are you. Thank you.